You want a white wine spritzer?
Is it on?
They turned it around even though it's kind of backwards.
So I don't need to be here.
So to me it looks like it's normal, but I think when it goes on there, it's got to be reversed.
Is that really good?
No. It makes me look like a lefty. Which I'm not. Well, you kind of do, because at some point we'd like to, haven't figured out how to, I think the light up above helps over here, and the shades close. Well, all right. So I've got our ingredients out, kind of just lined up. It wants to stay on me, sorry. So I've got carrots, celery, onions, and I bought bok choy today. And I put one creme caramel in the oven already, and the other one's ready to go, except I want to do the sugar with you because I think that's a real important part. Got some water boiling, kind of. All right. Got really nice. Is it about 4:30?
4:25.
Oh, that's it?
Yeah.
I'm early. That clock's off. What do you think about that? You gotta remember to water those thing outside. We'll have to take a water pitcher, watering can.
Oh, yeah. Or spray, open up the window and spray.
I was thinking about that, but the
Well,
screen is
reach.
annoying. So we'll do this.
No, it's gonna spray back. Can't.
It doesn't work. Not enough power there. We're just wasting air time. I should probably do it after. I always do it early. Should probably like start, turn it on at 4:30. I just think we should be ready. Move. You gotta be right in the middle, don't you? Get out of there. Alrighty. So I'd say we're close to 4:30, right? Or not yet?
4:28.
Okay. Do you have any fun jokes to tell, Reg? What was that silly family joke I told the other day that I got from the internet? Do you remember?
Let me take a look. They should be to everyone.
Yeah. Okay, I'd say it's happy hour. Just a little spritzer. And I wanted to share today a dessert that to me is a really light, very traditional French dessert, a crème caramel or a crème renversée, because you reverse it when you pop it out. So you make the caramel and you put that in the bottom of the cup or dish or baking dish, whatever you've got. And I'm going to do that caramel right now so you get to see how roasty, toasty, caramelly, orangey brown it needs to get. If you don't get it dark enough, you don't get the flavor that we really are looking for. And of course, it's more attractive with more color. So often when people make caramel, they put a lot of water in, the sugar, to get it melting, but then I have to wait for all that water to evaporate before I get to the right consistency and it starts browning. This is not cast in stone, I would say, so that's about a half a cup. I've got about a half a cup of sugar in there, and I'm going to brown it, and then we're going to put it in the bottom of this baking dish. And I already have one in, hoping that it might be done when I'm done, so at least you'll see the consistency. We're going to cook that custard. I'm going to add a little water, and I'll talk about it. I put just enough in here to make it wet. Some people go without water. It just seems like I have to pay even too much attention. And then we're going to put this on the stove and high heat. A heavy pan, the heaviest pan you've got is best, and that will allow it to cook more evenly, right? So I've got the caramel working. I would have had the milk scalding at the same time and put it to the side. I took some pictures of the first one, so I'll post those afterwards so you can see how that goes. And then I ended up, on the stove in another saucepan, I have the milk scalded, bring to a boil, turn it off, put it to the side. In a mixing bowl, I had the sugar, the eggs, maple syrup, a little vanilla, and whisk that really together really well. And then you slowly introduce the hot milk in here, a little bit at a time, a little bit more, eventually all of it. And then from here, I took a strainer and I poured it through the strainer into this bowl here. So I have this nice custard. It's definitely thicker than milk, probably about the consistency of heavy cream almost, all right? The batch recipe that I gave you is enough for 2 of these up to about here, theoretically for 6 people. I'm making a little extra, but we've got somebody that will take it off our hands. Same thing with the salmon. So on the stove would be my sugar with water, baking my caramel. I have my baking dish with another pan to go on the outside. We're going to put water in it, and one day I put it in the oven. I talk about that in the recipe. That allows it to cook more evenly, and it also keeps it from being too hot right there. I don't want it to get really hot and bubbly. So if the custard's cooked really nicely, it should be smooth, little to no bubbles in it. So really, and I don't do it regularly enough. If anything, err on the side of being a little lower and taking a little longer than higher and faster, right? So the sugar is starting to, just starting to boil. It hasn't all dissolved yet. Once it dissolves, then it's going to be totally like simple syrup, just liquidy, clear. And then we have to wait for the water to go away and evaporate, and then eventually it'll start caramelizing. Okay? Once it starts browning, you need to pay really good attention. Until then, you have a little time. So let's go over here. And I bought a big piece of salmon because we're going to share it. My son likes salmon and his girlfriend. So we've got plenty of salmon. This was a little heavier than I wanted, but I didn't feel like making the guy cut the end and the head off, the tail and the top. So this is about 1.8 pounds. You probably need 4 to 6 pounds per person. 1.8 pounds, 4 to 6 ounces per person. So 4 people, 24, about a pound and a half. It's a little more than we needed, but there it is. I forgot to take the skin off. So if you buy the salmon, I'm not a fan of the skin. So I asked the guy behind the counter to take the skin off for you. And then I just cut it in about 4 even portions and I ended up with a little piece. Okay? In the recipe, I talk about the idea that when you portion that salmon, if it's thick, that's not a very big fish. That wasn't very large, so it's not very thick this way. The thicker it is, you might want to cut it more at an angle to keep it a little thinner. The thinner it is, though, the quicker it can cook. I think in the recipe that I posted, if you look at it, you could even make this broth, this boiled dinner, and then throw in like slivers of it and then serve it. Or depending on how you want it cooked, you could do like a little julienne, a little like shoestring French fries of the salmon. Put it in the bowl like a rosace. Pour the hot broth over it. And then by the time it gets to the table, you just kind of stir it around. It'll be done too. Depending on how cooked you want your salmon. All right. So we're starting to get more bubbles. So as the bubbles get smaller, so they're big right now, they're eventually going to drop, and then it's going to look more like little volcanoes. And that means it's getting hotter, and then eventually it'll start browning. So we want to pay attention to this because this is important. A lot of people don't brown their sugar enough, and therefore you don't have that nice, rich flavor and color. And like I said, I won't be able to pop the one that's in the oven out of the dish because it's hot, but when it is, I'll post photos of that too. So I'm hoping that it'll be just about done so we can see what I mean by if you shake it when it's cooked, it'll jiggle, just like Jell-O. If it's not cooked, it'll look like a wave coming back and forth. We will have to go jiggle like Jell-O. Jell-O. You jiggle like Jell-O, Reg? She's not jiggling.
I hope
Be clear, she's not jiggling.
I hope not.
All right, so it wants to start browning, only on one side. I can start smelling it. So I need to pay attention. And my burner likes to get a little hotter on this side, so I rotate my pan around. What are you doing? What are you doing?
I have a note.
I'm going to knock something over.
Really?
Did you put the other one on?
No. You told me not to.
No, I didn't.
You said, what should I ask you?
Okay, just get it out of the way. It's too late now anyway. It just dawned on me.
Do you want me to put it on?
No. This one actually has been saving, so we'll see how it works. All right, so we're getting close. It's starting to brown. Needs to brown a little more. I would say now it's clear. The bubbles are smaller. You can kind of see them. Okay. They're really low now, the bubbles. As soon as I walk away, it's going to get too dark. That's why you have to watch this. Now the first one I did, I walked away, I came back, and one side was more brown than the other, and I just took it off the heat, stirred it up, and it continued. This will continue to cook. You don't want to get this on you. If you ever have, you'll probably lost some skin. All right? It's as bad or worse than fat. It's starting to smell. Not quite, almost. Almost, there we go. It almost smells burnt. So I like that. And then we're going to pour it in here. Whoop. Okay, so we're going to pour it into the dish. Could have cooked a little longer. The other one I cooked a little longer. It was a little darker, a little thicker. All right? Be careful when you add some water to it. I add water right away so that it's easy to wash. Then kind of roll it around the pan, your baking dish. It'll harden up soon enough. I'm going to wait till it hardens up a little bit before I put the actual custard in there, okay? Okay, see that color? Looks nice. The other one, it was a little darker. I'm going to wait till it firms up before I add the custard. Custard's all set. It'll probably come about halfway, which will be nice. My mother used to make these in the big dish as opposed to smaller ones. And then you pop it out and you just kind of serve family style. Okay. So I'm just stirring it up. I put the whisk down here to help keep it from splashing too much. And then we're going to come over here and we're going to add some water that I already have working. Already got water hot. As high as you can get it. It's good. And then I'll put it in the oven. I've got the other one already cooking. And hopefully it will be just about done when we're ready. It's doing pretty good actually. Right now it's a little wavy. It's been in there about 30 minutes or so. It might be done. All right, so let's get the salmon dish cooking. So what we want to do is we're going to use carrot, celery, and onions again, as we typically have for a lot of stuff that we've been doing. I did wash the carrot, celery, I washed everything. And I wanted like medium dice, and I mentioned why I like medium dice for the time that it takes to cook. Plus, I also like that it fits on a soup spoon. If you make it too small or too big, then we risk it not fitting nicely on the soup spoon. Okay, so that's another reason to do that. Okay? All right. So medium dice is about 1/2 inch. Remember, we've been talking about how to grab the handle, the base of the knife with our 2 fingers. Wrap the other 3 fingers around. Keep the tip down as much as possible, right? And then we'll get the carrot, celery, and onions cut. And then we'll get them in the pan. We'll saute them till they're tender. We've talked about this in the past. The better job, the more patient we are in letting the vegetables get tender while we're sweating them, the more flavor we're going to get out of it. It really does make a difference. All right, I had a red onion already open, cut, peeled, whatever you'd like to say. And we said like medium diced. Okay. And a couple carrots. And again, you can add as much carrots or whatever vegetable you like the most, add it. When I went to get cabbage this morning, I saw the little bok choy. I did not. I think that's even more than I need because a head of regular cabbage was too big, and the Savoy cabbage was. They were both probably twice that than what I already got there. So we're gonna make like a poaching broth is what we're making, and I had some open chicken stock, so I'm gonna just add that. If you have vegetable stock, chicken stock, it doesn't matter unless you don't want the meat. You're trying not to eat the meat at all. And so this poaching broth will have the carrot, celery, onions, some white wine, stock if I have it, and a little lemon juice. Sometimes you can put a little more acid in it if it was something that you weren't going to eat. But we're going to eat this broth, so I don't want it too acidic either. Put the flat side down, makes it all a little safer. I don't have any carrot in this. There's a thing called bouquet garni. I'm kind of faking it, so I'm going to put a little. I got some fresh parsley and chives from outside. I have some bay leaves and thyme as well that we're going to put in this liquid. And sometimes if you have leeks, you can use the leeks to kind of wrap it up and take it out. I prefer to kind of leave it all in there, if you will. All right, so we're going to get this cooking in the pan with a little oil and a lid on it. And I'll check that once I get this on, we'll check the other creme caramel. And I'll put the lid on it for now. And we'll see what's looking on down here. It's pretty close. I'd say, yeah, almost. Let's see. Yeah. I'm gonna leave it just a little longer. Almost there. So yeah, that's about right, I guess. 35 to 40 minutes. Okay, so we've got the vegetable sauteing. Eventually I'm going to peel and cut some potatoes and the bok choy. And let's add a little salt and pepper here. I can always add more later on. And I've got some thyme and bay leaf to add in a little bit. And let's go prep up our potatoes. Make sure I threw that back there, don't start a fire. All right, then we grab my bowl. All right, so I think I probably need those two. I probably don't need that big one. And I'm gonna cut it in quarter. Depending on what you want to do. Some people like to lay the wedges in there like that. That would work, especially for the smaller one. Or you can just cut it so it fits. So this is one way to lay it in, right? The bok choy. Another way would be to just cut it so it matches the size of everything else. And then I don't need a fork or a knife. I just need a spoon. So I'm going to cut it as if I don't want to use a fork and a knife. So I'm going to take all the core off so it falls apart. I think somebody's getting ready to barbecue outside. Okay, and about the same size as the other stuff. I want it to fit on my spoon, right? Pretty much is my goal. I can kind of forget about the vegetables over there because they have a lid on them. And unless I'm on super high, they won't burn while I'm doing this. Again, I've talked about in the past, I would like to have all this done before I'm cooking. So normally I'd have all the vegetables cut and ready to go, and then I would start cooking. But at the same time, for this purpose, I'd like to do this with you. So I think that's about enough cabbage. Yeah, that'll be plenty. If you prefer more cabbage, and by the way, this meal could be vegan. Doesn't have to have salmon, chicken, or whatever. And I could put chicken in this too, right? All right, so we're not going to use that. And we're going to do some potatoes. I have 6 out, but I think I'm probably only going to need 4. Let's check our vegetables. Good. I'm going to put the lid back on. Turn it down a little bit. All right, then we'll go back and cut the potatoes up. And if you've got questions, post them, and I'll go through later on Facebook and look for them and see if I can respond. Well, I will respond. And I don't know if I said it last week, but so this week we shared a Simos with our son, and so they have a really good deal going on. It's really nice and fresh, the vegetables. But for 2 people, I think the 2 boxes was a little too much for a week. It took us about 10 days. And the potatoes, I'm going to cut them, I think I'll make slices just to change it up a little bit. And they don't have to be in there quite as long either. Okay, let's check our vegetables. They're cooking. You can see they are still kind of bright in color. Okay. And I think we're going to take out the custard. And it'll continue to cook a little bit too. Okay. So you can see that. I think that's, just touch it. It's good. I don't know. It's a little longer. A little longer. It's getting close. Getting very close. All right, so we're going to add the cabbage to this. back and cut the potatoes. And they're just going to sit here. I'm not going to put them in any water because I'm going to use them pretty quickly. Oh, nice and slice. Okay, so if I did put water on it right now, I would add that water right to it. So if I wanted to do these ahead of time, then this liquid would be going in there as well, along with its starch. So it'd help thicken it, give it a little texture, if you will, to the liquid. And I'm standing, you know, I say this at school too, sometimes I stand a little differently so it's easier to see instead of me normally I'd be like this and you can't see anything. Part of the reason I put my tummy up against the cutting board is to try to keep food off the floor, which I do a really good job of here at the house. My wife will attest to that. Keep the floor very clean. Right?
Yes, for sure.
she had all she could do to say yes. Lucy probably does a better job of keeping the floor clean than I do. Whoops! There we go. Man down. What do you think, Lucy? You want that potato? Can't find paper towels at the grocery store. Actually, I think they had them today. But I did find some mechanics. All right, and then for later on, we'll do this for finishing the. We have chives outside. I noticed the blossoms are coming up. So if it's not next week, maybe the week after, they'll be up. And we'll do something. I like to make a vinaigrette with the chives. It's really nice.
Can you see the pot?
All right, let's go ahead and put in, again, we want the liquid to be flavorful, and since I'm eating it, maybe not as strong as I would do it, but if I wasn't going to eat this and I was going to cook the salmon in it and serve it separately, then I even make it more flavorful. So the key here is I put lots of flavor into this liquid. Makes the salmon taste that much better. And I don't have any fresh thyme yet, so a little bay leaf, a little thyme. I'm going to add a little more pepper. And then we'll add some liquid. Let's see. And this is like, you know, boiled dinner. Usually we think of boiled dinner being with corned beef. I had stock, so I'm putting it in. You don't have to. As long as you make sure it tastes good with salt and pepper before you add your salmon, it'll be delicious. Chicken stock or vegetable stock or whatever, or fish stock, if you like that flavor, is going to be just as good. Okay. And let's just see with the custard. Whoops. So we've got the vegetables. I got the potatoes ready to go. We got liquid in there. I'm going to add some wine. We got, oh, and I got a little lemon. Where did I put that? I've got a lemon I keep squeezing. So we'll put a little bit of lemon juice in there. Just a touch. If we want at the end a little fresh lemon juice, I can do that as well. And some white wine. I don't know, I gave you some proportions. Maybe it's about a quarter cup. Bring that to a boil. I've had the salmon out for about 45 minutes by now. And when I let that warm up a little bit, it's going to cook really fast, but very evenly once I do add it. So we're going to put it on high heat with a lid, bring it to a boil, and then we'll turn it down to a simmer till the vegetables are about 40–50%. So I got about 10–15 minutes or so. That's when I want to eventually add the salmon. And when they're about halfway done, I'm going to add the potatoes, if that makes sense. All right, I'm getting a feeling that my custard is done. I like the way it looks. It's jiggly, right? Or do you think it's wavy? What do you think? Jiggly or wavy?
I don't think it's done yet.
No, I think it's wavy. All right. And usually Regina's right, especially when it comes to baking, of all things. Right, Regina?
Not always. You don't have to put the potatoes in?
I'm going to in a sec. Then we'll mince up the herbs. So I might have talked about this before. This is fresh, just out of the little salad herb garden that we have outside. So I like the stalks. I like the extra flavor the stalks have. So I don't really take them off. So they're big and thick. And then we've got the chives. So we'll put some in, and then we'll save some to serve at the very end. A little extra virgin olive oil. And you could finish it with butter, or neither if you don't want. Okay? So as soon as we get that to a boil over there, we'll add the potatoes. Since we're here waiting, that's why it's taking so long. Lucy's in the back, keeping an eye on it.
Is she in the picture?
Yeah, she is. I think it's too bad this scenario doesn't allow me to see the comments right away like Instagram does. Okay. Just look at my notes, see if there's anything else. I mentioned here and on the recipe the thickness of our salmon and how warm or room temperature is will have an impact on how it cooks. And the warmer it is, if you, I don't mean warm like hot, but the more room temperature is, the more even it cooks, right? Any product, whether it's salmon or anything. And if I have it too cold, and I might have talked about this the first time, is if it's too cold, think of yourself going from a sauna to an ice bath, or the other way around, right? So it takes a lot of heat to get to the middle, and because the heat's so high, you've seen that steak or that roast beef with a lot of gray, well-done meat on the outside, and it's almost raw in the middle. So it was ice cold, it was cooked too high. Okay. If we get the salmon cooked perfectly, it's creamy inside and it's kind of flaky. If it's not creamy and starting to be very dry, it's overcooked, right? It does have to flake. It's almost like a creamy flaking that we're looking for. So we got our liquid going. We've added all the flavors except for some more fresh herbs. And the potatoes are going to go in once I get it to a boil. And then at the end, we'll add the salmon. So I think pretty much most of the things that we've been doing are pretty easy, kind of one-pot meals, and could even be quicker to cook. Well, the cooking time is the same, but if you had all your prep done in advance, then it becomes much easier to get it done. And you conceivably could have this all done in advance, your liquid and your potatoes separate. Put it away for later, today or tomorrow, actually.
And
right?
all that, what's in that pot is a great soup.
Well, all by itself is delicious, right?
Yeah.
That's what I'm getting at. It doesn't need the salmon in it. It doesn't need chicken in it. But that's a good vegetable soup, right? I put a little chicken stock in it. You could use vegetable broth or nothing. So it's a good soup, and it's not too cabbagey either by using the bok choy. When you use regular cabbage, just use less. We made a cabbage soup a few weeks ago, but we didn't use that much cabbage in it. So just keep that in mind. So we got a good boil going on. We're going to add the potatoes, keep it on high. Give it a stir. Salmon will just fit in this pan. It's gonna want some salt. So pretty much now we have to let this come back to boil, and then kind of a nice simmer to let the potatoes and the rest of the vegetables to be almost done. Then we'll add the salmon near the end. You know, worst case scenario, I overcook the potatoes. They're a little mushy in there. They make the soup, if you will, thicker. What I'm most worried about is I don't want the salmon to overcook. Yeah. And I'm going to finish it with a little extra virgin olive oil. Where's that outside?
Lucy?
Is the oil out there? Oh yeah. I'll go get the olive oil. I went shopping this morning, not with the senior citizens, but it was very wasn't densely populated, so that was good. So we leave stuff on the breezeway on the table, and that way you can disinfect it. You know, you see that meme where I gotta go outside and wash my vegetables, like my groceries, right? That's us. I think we said that today. I hate washing the vegetables.
Half the vegetables, all the other.
Yeah, the other stuff. So I can just feel and tell that it's still very firm in there because it has a much different. It's like you're running into a little wall. All right, let's do a little chopping, mincing of our herbs. We're gonna put some in here now, and then later on for garnish, right? So I'm gonna cut these also about 1/2 inch-ish. So pretty much the same size as the rest of the stuff that's in the pot. And we'll put some in a moment and the rest in later at the end, right before service. So I like to put fresh herbs in at the end. It helps really kind of enhance the perfume of the herbs that we cook with. And how about we do this? So I'm going to pluck the leaves off. Hi, Lucy.
Start part.
She seems to be on a mission. Is that what you're saying?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to put the stalks and a few of the leaves in now with some of the chives. And then this, I'm just going to coarsely kind of fluff it. That'll be at the end. Okay. So Lucy found somebody to yell at outside. It's her corner of the block. She's in charge. Okay. So we'll add those in here. And turn it down a little bit. And I think we're going to take the custard out. I think we're done. It's starting to crack a little bit on the top too. It's a little more, yeah, it's a little more jiggly and it's less wavy. It's not jiggly. It's jiggly. So we'll let that kind of finish here. It's not going to be cold enough for me to pop it right now. I'll do that afterwards. And what I do is if I had a cup, let's just say this was the cup with the custard in it. What I do normally is I go in and I actually push the custard back a little bit from the edges. Then I put a plate over it, turn it over. And if you go like that, you're pushing it against the side. Air comes up and over the top and allows it to release very easily. So when I do that on the dish, I'll push down on the edges a little bit, put a plate over it. I quickly turn it upside down and give it a little shake away from me, and it's just enough to get the side off the side of the custard away from the dish. Allow some air up there so the suction releases. Who knew? Okay, and so I have the one I put in won't come out while we're together, and I'll take pictures of that when it's on the plate afterwards. I gotta let it chill before I pop it. It's actually really delicious to eat warm. But then I would like little custard dishes for that. Actually, it's really warm custard is really good. A little whipped cream on top. Some fresh
Yeah, but you
berries.
didn't buy any heavy cream.
Nope, I forgot to get whipped cream for you, Regina. All right, guys. And now kind of look for a potato in here. See what I think. Potatoes are about half cooked. I'm gonna wait a little bit longer before I add the salmon. I'm not gonna go until I can show you how the salmon looks when it's done. Right? That's all I gotta do is just the salmon for you. I can put the salmon in, take it out, and let the vegetables keep cooking. Yeah, then I don't keep you around any longer, and you could start cooking if you haven't already. So I'm gonna lay the salmon in. It's kind of boiling. I'm gonna lay the salmon in, and then I'll check it and show you how I like it to look. I'm just gonna do 2 right now. Pan's pretty full. Turn the heat down a little bit. Put the lid on. Turn the heat down just a teeny bit more. I'm gonna wash my hands, and then I'll get a plate, and we can take it out when the salmon's done. So I can show you how I look at salmon for doneness. Again, I am boiling it, simmering it. If I was poaching, there'd be no bubbles. So just below bubbles, and then I'm poaching. And at school, we've played a lot with this the last couple of semesters, and I'm finding if I'm just doing poaching. So if I was making that liquid, taking all those goodies out, after they're all tender and done, that means all the flavors come out of the vegetables. I strain it, bring it back to boil, turn it down to a simmer. It's got to have enough volume so that when I put the product in, it's submerged fully. And then I want it at about 172. We found 172 is really nice, cooks it perfectly. Again, the product wants to be tempered also for that to happen well. It seemed like when it was 180, it cooked it a little faster than we would like. And of course, the volume of liquid that you have, like anything else, you don't want to overload the pan or your liquid. I want to keep the temperature about the same. So if I put too much product in there, temperature drops, takes a while for it to come back up, and so on. So we'll just wait for the salmon. I'll show you that, what it looks like when I think it's done. And then we'll sign off, and then I'll show some pictures afterwards of it plated. With it's going to look just like this, really. It's going to look like that in a bowl. And the custard I'll show you afterwards too. And I took some pictures of me making the custard, and I'll post those as well on through Instagram, Facebook. Instaface. So it's not done yet, but if you look, you'll see it still has the same color in there that it had before. Okay, so we know it's not done. The camera woman's the best.
Yeah, I can't see them when I'm doing it.
I know. That's the only thing about it this way. But it keeps, if you're not here, it keeps me, I can tell that I'm in it. Like if you disappear for a second, I go too fast. But the other way might be easier. Okay.
Nuts are great on top of the creme caramel. And toast nuts.
Oh, I was thinking of doing that. So what we used to do at the restaurant is we used to call it maple creme caramel. And then we would do a walnut brittle. So all I do is take the same caramel and put some nuts in a pan and pour the hard caramel over it. And it's very hard in the beginning, but if you have a lot of nuts there, it's really actually pretty delicious. And then you could take that and pound it up so it's almost... Can you do that again? The camera woman's getting a little crazy on me. going on over there, Regina? Almost. We're getting there. What was I saying? Oh, about the walnuts. So with the walnuts, if you do that, put them in a little cookie tray, pour the caramel over it. It'll actually toast the nuts too. It's hot, right? And then when it cools, you just pick it up to chunks. And when I was younger, I didn't think that. Now I do a better job of making finer. And you could make. Oh, the thing is reacting weird. Oh. What'd you do?
I didn't do anything to it.
Oh, devices failed.
Uh-oh.
Is running out of juice? Is blue light?
Yeah.
All right. Equipment malfunction, I think. All right. Technology, right? So I make a powder, almost a dust. And that's another nice way to incorporate the walnut flavor. You want it more mapley? I added an eighth of a cup of maple syrup, eighth of a cup of